In everything that he did, he tried to express those things. And so I would like to just shortly read to you from the King James Version of the Bible, and then also the Christian Science textbook, Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, by the discoverer of Christian Science, Mary Baker Eddy. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that are were ordained of God. And I give unto them eternal life, and they shall never perish. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying. For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. And from the Christian Science textbook, life is real, and death is the illusion. To spiritual sense and in science, life goes on unchanged, and being is eternal. Man is spiritual and perfect, and because he is spiritual and perfect, he must be so understood in Christian Science. Man is idea, the image of love. He is not physique. He is the compound idea of God, including all right ideas, the generic term for all that reflects God's image and likeness, and therefore is eternal. Spirit is God, and man is his image and likeness. Therefore, man is not material, he is spiritual. Posey has gathered a very inclusive program for us to share. No man is a single image. We all have perceptions based on our interactions and relationship with somebody. And the wonderful thing about a sharing like this is that we help one another see a full and true picture of the person that we loved, and perhaps gain a broader love for that individual. And I hope that's going to be the case today. I hope all of you have a program in your hands, and we're going to move through it rather seamlessly. I'm not going to come up and introduce each and every person. So you will know who is whom as you look at your program. Some of the individuals will certainly introduce themselves. Many of the musicians that we're going to hear from were students of Posey's, 3 of them. Help me. Britt Day, Zach, and her grandson,
yes,
Max. So, and that will be a real treat for you. But
husband to my mother, and he told me many times how much he loved her and how important she was to him and how important it was for her to be happy. And I know he cared about my happiness as well. He took the time to really talk to me and get to know me, and set a wonderful example for me as a person. And just so grateful for that. And as you know, he was also a lover of music. It was one of the great loves of his life. He just loved to see music and to dance to music and to listen to music. It brought him so much joy. And he supported me in my music making. It's funny, whenever I had a show, or whenever the Beautiful Losers, we got a plug for you here, why not? Whenever the Beautiful Losers would be playing in town, he would be the first one to find the listing in the paper and flip it out or circle it and show it to me. Hey, I saw you guys are playing. That's awesome. So give us just a minute here, and we're gonna play a song for you.
Yay.
Waiting for her just to call.
Watching the clock going on, waiting for us to go. Everything's the same. I want all myself in display. Won't you please, please believe that our love will always be. You'll remember me. If you remember me, if you remember me, Thank you so much.
I'm 131. Yeah. But thank you, Brett and Raj. It was fantastic. And my dad really loved their music and loved being in a house that was full of music and piano playing and all the students. It was a special thing for him to have music all around. Anyway, I was going to do a toast. And everyone is supposed to have a glass handed to them.
It's being passed out.
It's being passed out. Okay. The story is that my dad was in advertising, as it was already told. He, in the early 50s, he advertised root beer as one of his products. And then in 1955, he did the Belfast Pop Club. And the Belfast Pop Club was like an American Bandstand kind of show. My dad he knew lots of entertainers. He had Ella Fitzgerald on the show, the Andrews Sisters, a whole bunch of people who were really famous. And it was like like American Bandstand. He had Don Sherwood as the soda fountain jerk who got behind the counter and served root beer to the kids that would come and sit down at the table. So it was like a little dance party. They'd have 45 records that they would play, and these entertainers would pantomime to the records. And everything was done live. And Don Sherwood, of course, was a little bit of an alcoholic, quite a bit. And my dad really never knew if he could last the whole show, and so my dad was always nervous that he would have to take over and finish the show for him, but it never happened that way. It worked out just fine. One little story about, and also Phyllis Diller came into play in this whole thing too. My dad thought that she was such a funny woman, and he said, "I want you to be on my show." And she said, "Well, no, I played at the Purple Onion or the Hungry Eye, one of those two." And they kind of booed me off the stage, and they didn't really like me. So, "Well, tell Enrico Banducci to watch Wednesday night because you're on." Well, after her performance, it was so funny that she got a 5-year contract. I think it was Purple Onion, and that put her into show business. About 10 years ago or so, my dad and Posey went to a performance that she had at the Marin Civic Center. And the marquee said Phyllis Diller, and so they walked in and they asked, where is she? And she said, oh, she's in the dressing room getting ready for the show. So the dad knocked on the door and said, oh, hi, Phyllis. And so, Bill, are you going to be in the audience? And she said, yes. So the first thing she did, she walked out on the stage and said, I want to introduce everyone here to the man that started me in show business. Stand up, Bill Anderson. And it was great.
Wow.
It was great.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
The commercial.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The commercial.
We're the first and second flutists in the San Francisco Symphony for giving me this talented kid. And we struggled to read, but he was,
I got another story.
okay.
'Cause we don't have to talk about how I struggled to read.
The grandson who's doing that. I have hopes for.
But and we found, I didn't know this until actually right before the service. Me and Zach and Ben all went to Tam Valley School, and my dad discovered you because he heard Zach playing in the multi-purpose room on an upright piano. He said, hey, who do you study with? Like Fur Elise or something, you know?
No, Maple Leaf Rag.
Maple Leaf Rag, excuse me. I don't know. So there's some silly full circle sort of stuff. Anyway, I'm gonna play Malagueña.
Yay.
Bill and I were married on a hilltop above McKegney Green in 1980 by Frank Evans. Bill's 3 children were present and my 2 children. Brett played the guitar and Becky sang. I think Peter Horton also composed a song for us. I was 16 years younger than Bill, and Frank Evans kept saying to me, "You're gonna have a hard time keeping up with this guy. He's really amazing." And I really didn't understand that at the time. Boy, was I naive. He had unstoppable energy even to the end. He was going out on the deck and exercising. The last 6 years of his life, he spent in production of the various books that you see of his travels. He would exercise every day. He had a routine he needed to accomplish. Before that, when he went to he swam down here and went to the hot tub daily, and he had to have a joke. Someone will tell you about that, or I hope someone will speak about it. But he definitely, besides having this unstoppable energy, I found out early on he had guardian angels. I will do this. The first year of our marriage, we were on the island of Molokai. He didn't like high-rise hotels. We always stayed in something that was 1 story or 2 stories. So we were staying in an old hotel there that had a golf course, and we were walking down to the beach. I was in front of Bill, and it was kind of crude walking. It had to be like a 1-path thing. And I was in front of Bill walking down the hill, and I turned around to look at him, and there was a runaway golf cart headed straight for him. I don't know whether I yelled or not, but it missed him by inches. And I was stunned. I never forgot it. The second time was when we were traveling in Mexico with our good friends, Jack and Marion. Bill's best buddy was 2 years younger than he, and they were really best buddies. They grew up across the street from each other. We were traveling in Playa del Carmen in the Mexican Yucatan on a 2-lane road, and and Bill was driving, Jack was sitting beside him, Marion was bird watching in the back seat, and I was just looking. A huge trailer truck passed us, and the trailer swung over the center line and just barely missed us, inches again. You know, I was thanking God, but I swear it was Bill's angels. The third time was a very dramatic one, and that was in our favorite place in Zihuatanejo, the Villa del Sol that we went to for 27 years. And Bill and Jack would always snorkel together early in the morning. It was an El Nino year, and they had gone out to snorkel at the end of the beach early in the morning, and the waters were too muddy, so they gave it up. In the afternoon, the waters looked calm to Bill. He didn't tell anybody, but he snuck down the beach, went snorkeling. And as he describes it, a big wave hit him, he went under, he got back up, thought he was okay, and another big wave hit, and he said, "I said goodbye to the world."
Wow.
And a hand reached down, pulled him out, and pulled him to the shore. They called the paramedics, they ran down the beach to get me. I was at the bar waiting for the sunset. And I ran down the beach, and I looked at the guy who pulled him out, and Bill was stunned, but he was okay. And the guy had the face of a cherub. And I asked him his name and what he did. He said, "I'm a taxi driver." Now, Bill and I had witnessed, they do train their youth on the beach down there and give them life safety lessons. So a lot of the youth know how to pull people out if they're in trouble. Anyway, I think I had a little purse with me with $10 or $20, and I reached in and handed him, something, what's a life worth? And as I thought about it, you can't put a price on life. Bill wanted to write a story but the owner of the hotel didn't want it, and he refused to let Bill do it, because Bill told him, I'd like to write a story and put it in the local paper. No, you can't do that. So I thought about it a lot, and as we went back each year, on the 4th year we went back, I would always think about this taxi driver, and I would always look, if we went to town, at who the taxi driver was, hoping to meet him again. And as we were going out to dinner, Bill said, grab my billfold out of the safe. And I was always the one who did the combination of the safe, and I was very proficient at it. I couldn't get it open. I kept doing it. I thought, what the heck is wrong? Why can't I open this? 10 minutes I spent trying to open it. I couldn't get it open. Finally it opened. And so I ran down to the front desk. The taxis would line up, and as people came out, they would just load in the taxis and go. They were already there. Well, they had let apparently 10 or 12 taxis go by, and then finally our group got in a taxi, or four of them got in the taxi. I jumped in. They were already in this taxi. I jumped in. The taxi driver turned around and looked at me, and it was the guy. I was going, oh my God. And I said, Bill, look at him. And they looked at each other and hugged. It was really, it was really something. Well, guess what? I had Bill's billfold in my hand. And it was stuffed with $20 bills. So when he let us out at the restaurant, I reached in and tipped him. I have no idea how much. Everything wouldn't have been enough as far as I was concerned. That was an answer to my prayer, because I wanted to see that taxi driver again. Bill loved music and dancing. When the music would start, he would start moving. And he would want to be the first one on the dance floor, and I didn't want to, because I didn't want to feel conspicuous, but he just loved it. He didn't care. I got used to it. We shared so much. He loved to build. I loved to decorate. We made a great team. I'm so grateful for those 36 years that I had with him. To reflect on Bill, I feel like he's part of a lost generation. He lived through the Depression. He served in the Second World War. He built his own house on Belvedere Island with a hammer and nails and a skill saw and a book, How to Build Your House. Imagine. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't complain. He didn't complain about not having money. He knew the opportunities were there. He was such he was an incredible guy as far as inventing or solving a problem. That was his challenge. All I have to say is I'm forever grateful for the 36 years that we had. I feel honored. Thank you.
I'm Roberta McMullen, and my children took piano lessons from Posey for quite a few years. And my husband Barry, who's seated right there, I think he still takes piano lessons from Posey. He's a forever student of Posey. And Posey asked me to share this poem that I wrote for Bill when he turned 90 years old. There was a little get-together, so this is my ode to Bill. This is a story about a man named Bill who is just turning 90 and can't sit still. At almost 6'3", tall, handsome, and thin, dapper and debonair, and always wearing a grin. At sunrise each morning, so he doesn't get fat, he's out walking Ruthie, who we know isn't a cat. He is spotted around town, sporting a black cap, and when the women see him, they want to jump in his lap. Bill soon heads home to greet his sweet Posey as she plays a few tunes. Ah, life is perfectly rosy. A little parched, he drinks a root beer, Pondering, he decides to grab his swim gear. At 4 o'clock sharp, he's off to the club to meet his dear cronies in the hot tub. They chuckle and laugh, Bill's the joke man, while he relaxes his muscles and works on his tan. Oh yes, Bill, with his sweet, gentle ways, has a knack to tell stories of long ago days. His new hobby is magic. Abracadabra, disappear, you're gone. One day he lost Posey until the next dawn. The women adore him with eyes of bright blue. So suave on the dance floor, he knows the right moves. After all these years of refined, gracious living and travels afar, we are lucky to know Bill. He's brightened our lives like a star. So happy birthday to Bill, as I bid adieu, and I want you to know that we will all always love you.
Citizens came back from their trip to St. Croix with the leatherback turtles. I had the opportunity to write an article about that for the ARC newspaper. So what I'm going to read now is an excerpt as a memory from that article. Posey thought she was being whisked off to another of Bill's delightful adventures, this time to St. Croix in the Virgin Islands, to relax on its secluded beaches and long nights under a full moon. Instead, it turned out to be one of the most arduous but rewarding experiences of their lives. Posey commented, "We will never forget it. Our Earthwatch expedition to save the huge leatherback turtles was unique." They were part of a volunteer team of 10, each of whom had paid hundreds of dollars to work from 7:30 in the evening until dawn for 10 nights along 2 beaches under the direction of a couple of biologists on leave from the Bronx Zoo. In preparation for their nightly 8-mile beach patrol, Bill and Posey slathered themselves completely in bug repellent against the relentless attack of the no-see-ums, donned heavy socks and tennis shoes, dressed in light clothing, and carried a load of rain and research gear. Then they trudged ankle-deep in soft sand, single file, along the beach, watching and waiting for the turtles. After 3 hours, Posey began to wonder if she could make it through the first night, let alone 10 nights. We actually paid to do this, she thought, her resentment growing. Then, just as she was about to give up, Emma, the turtle dog, started barking to announce the arrival of a leatherback. The turtle was enormous, Posey remembers. It was already on the beach. It was so much more than Posey ever expected. The turtle had begun to pit or dig her body into the sand, setting herself to scoop out a 3-foot deep nest for her eggs. Bill and Posey were fascinated by her amazing hind flippers, acting like large webbed hands, methodically, rhythmically, and carefully scooping out the sand. As she continued to carefully dig her nest, Bill and Posey crouched behind her, each with orders for working the turtle. They read and recorded her tags attached to her flippers by previous teams. Then they quickly measured the nest in centimeters, as they would have to recreate the nest on higher ground for safety. The command came, "Bill, pull her flipper back and shove in the nest." Flat on his stomach, Bill held her flipper, pushing sand. On her knees, Posey waited for someone to hand her the eggs. Another team member was head first in the nest, pulling out eggs 2 at a time. The leatherback was nearly finished laying. She heaved an enormous sigh, turned, and began to cover her nest, throwing sand everywhere. Some nights there were 4 turtles, some nights none. As each dawn broke, the Andersons dragged wearily back to their beachfront cottage for a shower and bed. Bill recalled, I was so tired each morning as we got into our van for the return trip that I plopped into the first seat. It was just too far to go to the rear. At 70, he was the most senior member of this particular group, while the youngest was 18. The Andersons considered this once-in-a-lifetime adventure, and it was satisfying to know they helped to hatch about 1,000 turtles who might never have made it had it not been for them.
For the people. My name is Paul Thorne. My wife and I moved to Tiburon many years ago with our small children, and Bill and Posey took us under their wing, as they do so many people, welcome them into their lives. And we got to know them pretty well. And we all know that Bill had his projects, right? And so many projects, and many times they would be with other people and helping them. So he read in the paper about the Mill Valley Soapbox Derby. And he knew that my son liked to draw mechanical drawings and all sorts of things and do things with his hands. So he asked Christopher if he'd like to, my son at the time 13, if he'd like to build a soapbox derby racer. Christopher said, sure. So they spent the next several weeks building a soapbox derby racer. It was really amazing because if you know Bill, he doesn't do anything halfway, right? And he has to do it his way, and it has to be original, right? So I'll just go quickly through the experience, and then he wasn't able to be here today, my son, so he wrote a little thing with his wife in honor of Bill. The first thing Posey reminded me was that Bill took a piece of plywood and laid it in the driveway and had Christopher lie down on it, and he traced Christopher's body on the thing to make sure that the soapbox derby racer was going to be the right size, right? That was funny in itself, but they started there. They built a steering mechanism, they built a braking system, and it was really interesting and cool the way they did it, right? So Christopher, is such a great gift for Christopher to be involved with that. They worked downstairs in Bill's shop. And one story I heard that I didn't know is my wife went there to pick up Christopher one time and went down to the shop and came back up and said, Posey, I don't know which one's the kid down there. I don't know if they were arguing or they were having a good time. I don't know. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. So they finally got to a point where it was time for a test drive. And Bill scouted for the right street, no traffic, and he found one reasonably close by in a new addition they were building. So they tried to put the soapbox derby in my wife's station wagon. It didn't fit, so they kind of tied it in there. Bill got an old helmet of Brett's, a bicycle helmet, and they took off, and they were gone for quite a while. And when they came back, the soapbox derby racer was a little bit worse for wear. It looked like there had been an accident somehow. So evidently, the hill was a little steeper than Bill had thought. And when Christopher started down the hill, Bill was following in Dee's station wagon, and he kept building up speed, and the racer started to shimmy. The faster it went, the more it shimmied, and finally Christopher lost control and fell over his side and slid a bunch of the way down the hill. And when they told that story, my wife was upset. I had to calm her down a little bit. But there wasn't a scratch on Chris, and it was just such a fun thing to have happen. They put the racer back together, and anyway, so came time. Actually, Bill used his marketing skills and went out and got sponsors. So they put decals. I think Bill Jr. even put the vinyl skin on the racer. They had decals. They had a big flame on the sides, and they loaded up the racer, and we all went to watch Christopher race at the special home design. I can't remember what they call it, but a bunch of other racers, very slick and everything, but Bill and Christopher's was the best looking, and performance-wise, he won the race easily.
Wow.
We all cheered, we all took pictures. They ended up, Goodman Lumber was one of the sponsors, and they actually put the Soapbox Derby racer right in the front and displayed it for several weeks. It was such a great, great experience for my son, and I'll never forget, Bill for doing that. It was so great. One of the things he put on the racer was a wood carved toucan. It's a bird with a big bill, and it was just bizarre. It was so cool. So anyway, it was a great gift for my son, and so much good feelings about the gift that he gave us. And so anyway, he actually wrote, my son and his wife, who's a writer, wrote something about what it meant to him, and I'm just going to read it real quickly. When I was in the 8th grade, I spent countless hours designing, building, and testing a soapbox car with Bill. I will never forget riding in it for the first time, or flipping on its side during an especially thrilling run. Today, that Soapbox Derby car is stored at my house in Massachusetts. I've thought a lot about Bill in the last few months, about the specifics of our time together, about our conversations, our plans, and our strategies. I've admired the car's well-built braking system and steering column, and I've considered its role in inspiring my own career. But none of those details seem to matter as much as the colorful hood ornament that Bill added just before our big race in Mill Valley. He might tell you that the small wooden toucan was just a last-minute idea, but I'm not so sure. In many ways, the real-life version of that mascot has many of the qualities that so many of us admired in Bill: amiable, chatty, and inquisitive, instantly recognizable, and simply unforgettable. That's high praise for any bird or man, but there is something more. The toucan is generous. It can grasp treats and treasures that are out of reach for its feathered friends, and it shares them with a flourish and a verve that few other creatures can match. The toucan will always remind me of a person who shared his love of building with me. Bill was my mentor and my friend, and he gave to me what too few people are willing to give: his time. He was unfailingly excited about our work together, and his enthusiasm is very much a part of my memory of him. My wife and I are expecting our first child in August, and the toucan, as everyone has come to call it, is waiting for its next driver in our basement. When I finally have the chance to explain how it got to our house, I know exactly how I will start. The toucan would be nothing without its large, colorful bill.
Look at me. I'm as helpless as a kitten up a tree, and I feel like I'm clinging to a cloud. I can't understand. I get misty just holding your hand. On my way, and a thousand violins begin to play, or it might be the sound of your voice. That's music I hear. I'm just misty, moan on your near. You can say that you're leading me on, for that's just what I want you to do. Don't you notice how hopelessly I'm lost? That's why I'm following you. Oh, my Lord, what a wonder through
a different life in the hot tub from the one he had up on Reed Boulevard. In this hot tub soup, we had a variety of people who all got together every evening from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock, and we met almost daily. We enjoyed each other, we learned from each other, we argued, we debated, we laughed. We laughed together, and laughter was the big thing that Bill brought to the hot tub. He loved to tell jokes, just loved to tell jokes. And he wrote a joke book, which I'm sure most of you know about. And some of them are foul jokes. I mean, WL jokes, like the chicken who crossed the road. But he also said things that would even embarrass a kindergartner, like, did you hear about the guy who was murdered last night? Police found the victim face down in his bathtub, filled with milk and cereal and cornflakes. They think it was a serial killer. Did you hear about the Buddhist who refused Novocaine during his root canal? He wanted to transcendental medication. And then he loved the raunchy jokes. There's always a contention between Michael Driver and Bill as to who first told this one. It was a sexist joke about the blonde who was told by her doctor that she was pregnant. And she said, "How do I know it's mine?" The other jokes I won't tell you. There are some of you too young, but you can read them to hear. Bill was not only the oldest person in our hot tub, he was the deafest. He used his deafness to great advantage. He could turn himself off when he wanted to, but he participated in everything. We look to him for his wisdom, his stories, and of course, his humor. We had a political problem with Bill. He was outnumbered. Bill was a Republican. The majority of the Marin Knights in the hot tub were Democrats. These were the George Bush days. And he had to defend George Bush amongst all of us who had other opinions. Bill had another female in his life. Her name was Ruthie. He and Ruthie would walk out on the point every day. She was on a leash. She deposited and he picked up. Ruthie, of course, was his whippet. There was also a Wendy, or I should say a Wendy with an apostrophe S. This was the Wendy's he invested in. Was it Texas or Texas? And for several months, we heard about his travails with the situation there. Bill thought he was being scammed, and it turned out that Bill went out because he was smart. He was smart. Bill always sat in the same place in the hot tub, in the northeast arc of the hot tub, and he always wore his fisherman's cap, and I was taken aback when I looked back there and I saw what I think is Bill's cap on somebody who looks just like Bill. And you all met him earlier this evening, Bill Jr. Is that his cap?
No, I had my new one.
You have your own.
I gave this to one of the...
Well, enshrine that cap. Enshrine that cap. I see a lot of our hot tubbers here. Joe, Betty, Karen, Michael, Randy, Jane, Herbie, Terry, and I think I saw Jay and Tama walk in. And Raj, you were there early on. We had a great time, just a great time. Bill stopped coming to the hot tub about 5 years ago.
6.
He remained the oldest member of the club until he passed several months ago. I think he believed in the afterlife, and if he is right, I certainly hope he took his joke book with him.
This is the only one I could find.
He doesn't want to.
First of all, I was supposed to make this very short, so I may have to cut some pages out and make it as short as possible. Might have to have Victor Borgi help me turn the pages, which he was very good at.
Just don't fall off the ladder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's gonna fall off.
Why am I on this ladder? Bill was not a big man, but he was a tall man. Tall man, knew what he was doing, knew how he cared about people, knew more about himself than anybody else. First of all, we need to start with some type of a little exercise. When I say something that doesn't seem right, just nod your head. Yes.
Yeah.
Can I see that? Yes. You can even say no, but nod your head forward. If something comes up, you need to say no by turning your head left and right. It still is yes, because I may not know what I'm saying, so say yes. Bill and I go back a long ways, 99 years. Now that we got that exercise done, why am I on this ladder? Because I told you that Bill's a tall man, and I want to be as tall as him. He wore many hats, and I wouldn't have the courage to put it on. There wasn't many different types of hats. It was this type of hat. And he seemed like the only person I know that it fitted. It fitted him like anybody else. So I'm not going to embarrass myself by putting it on. With that smile behind that hat, on top of that head, he had a special head for that special hat. As I was telling you, he always thinks about other people. Chris Morrison and I would take kids from Big Brothers and Big Sisters out on a cruise of the bay every year. And Bill would come down and be a volunteer and help set up tables and chairs at the Tiburon Lodge. And when we got back, the place was set up. We would feed the kids, and Santa would be there and be passing out presents at the end of the dinner. As the kids lined up for their presents, Bill was in line too for his present. As he is always a kid and always wanted to be near the kids, he felt close by standing in line and said hello to Santa. His volunteer work really made him happy. When he was a volunteer at the China Cabin in Belvedere, he was right at his helm. There, when he was there, people loved him when he would greet them. He had the answers. They asked him the questions. Always an answer, even if it was wrong. Who would know if it was right or wrong? He still was giving them an answer. I bought this sign, this picture of Carmel by the sea, even though it may not be. Yes. It reminded me of Bill, as he always has climbed stairs. He climbed the stairs in Mill Valley, and he kept on climbing and climbing. It was a start for him to keep climbing all the way to the resting place he will be seen. With the bird trying to catch up with him, he kept on climbing. This made, to keep him climbing, he made it. Tony Bennett left his heart in San Francisco. Bill left his heart wherever he went. Most of all, Belvedere, Tiburon, and Mill Valley. As he looked at Posey with that twinkle in his eyes, I believe that twinkle was made when he met Posey. His love for her was very special. As I climbed down this ladder to remember, that's up.
That's it.
As I climb down this ladder, I want us to all hold hands and bow your head in a moment of silence to reflect those stairs and the bird follow Bill with that smile, onward and onward. God bless. Moment of silence.
Him. And another thing that he said one day when he was about 88, he was going out with Prince. I don't know if I've got the age right, but I know it was Prince. He was going out with Prince, and I said, Bill, where are you going? And he said, I'm going to the hospital to meet with the old people. And he was 88, and he was taking Prince, and he would do it every day. And he would take the dog to the hospital and meet with people just to brighten their day. And he said to me, you know, if I brighten somebody else's day, that makes my day. And he meant it. You know, he wasn't bragging, he really meant it, and he did it until he couldn't do it anymore. And I just thought that was so incredible. And what continued to attract me to, and one other little funny story. I don't know how old he was, but I remember one day I went there and he had this big smile, big bright white smile. He said, how do you like my new teeth? And he had gotten an entire new set of veneers, I guess. And then he went and told me how much they cost. How old was he?
He was close to 90.
Yeah, he was old. And when he told me how much his teeth cost, I remember thinking, I would never let my husband spend that on teeth at that age.
No, I encouraged him. He
You
didn't want
did.
to.
I know.
convinced him.
But
I
they
convinced
lasted
him.
another 9 years, and he had such a
Sort of.
It made a good. No, they made a big difference. They were good. He needed those teeth. In any event, so I continue to be attracted to both Posey and Bill as a couple. They were, in my opinion, and I think it shows today by the kind of event that Posey's throwing, is they were an elegant couple. They did everything the right way. Bill wore a tux. Posey didn't give a party without real china and real glasses and real napkins. You know, no paper plates for Posey. And it reminded me of an era gone, you know, that we don't see that anymore. We don't see people pouring beautiful wine into beautiful cups for a piano recital, beautiful glasses, for a piano recital. And it just, that coupled with the love of music, and classical music in particular, to me, I'm terrified that's dying out. And I just look at Posey and Bill and thought, you know, they're what we're gonna miss. in life as so many things change. And so I was really attracted to that elegance and that class and that devotion. And another thing I wanted to mention was Bill, nobody's ever said this, but Bill was really old when he died. I mean, he was really old, and I'm gonna get to that later, but just note that. He was very old. And when I turned 50, I had a small birthday party for just my closest girlfriends, and Posey was one of them. And Posey was older than we were by a lot. And Bill was older than we were by a lot, and older than all of our husbands. So quickly the conversation came to, so Posey, what's it like to be married to somebody that's so old? And she proceeded to tell us, and honestly, some of the stuff I cannot repeat. And in more ways than one, she could not keep up with him. And some of us were happy to hear it, some of us not so much. But as she described what it was like to be the wife of, he must have been, if I were 50, he would have been, I don't know, he was 80-something. And he was still quite the cad and quite a loving husband and always doing fun things. Remember Valentine's Day, they'd go out dancing? And we didn't go out dancing when we were in our 40s. And he would continue to take her out every Valentine's Day to go dancing. And I just thought, oh, this is what marriage should be like. And I was so, I admired their relationship so much. However, there's another part of their relationship that I admired so much. And the fun cruises and the dances and the dinners and the traveling couldn't last forever, and they didn't. And when Bill was really old, he got ill, and he was old, and he was hard to take care of. And like a lot of us, I think, will when we're older, we kind of turn in, and we focus more on ourselves and not so much on the people around us. And we're not always that easy to be with, and we're not always easy to take care of, and we're not easy at all, actually, often. And the last 3 years, I watched Posey give her life to Bill and her health. And she went to the hospital, I don't know how many years ago, and Bill wouldn't have left the hospital if Posey hadn't been there. They weren't taking care of him, and he wouldn't have left. But he did, and she brought him home for another 3-4 years.
That was 6 years ago.
6 years ago.
And thanks to Adam Rosenblatt, who told me what to do.
And thanks to Posey, who bothered Adam Rosenblatt to tell her and the doctors what to do. He wouldn't have survived that, and he wouldn't have survived to be 99 without Posey. But during that time, some of the stuff Posey said, during the difficult times, I would think, Posey, we're gonna have a funeral someday and you're gonna have to, we'll be here talking about him. But you know, that's life. And she was with him and she took care of him, and that's really what my girlfriends and I, who were with her at 50, when we were 50, have learned now of the serious businesses through thick and thin, sickness and in health. And Bill and Posey played hard, and they loved hard, and they worked hard. And Posey worked hard at the end of Bill's life, and all of us who love Bill are happy for her and happy that she did, and I learned a lot from that kind of experience, and I hope someday my husband will benefit from that. Thank you.
On twice.
I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places, all that but I'll be seeing you. Bill, I'll always remember you.
I'm Jim Campy. I'm Bill's nephew, and I'm honored to wear the hat that Bill gave me many, many years ago. And this is my wife, Pam. I'm also going to wear the glasses.
Oh, you look like Bill.
Did you ever notice when Bill wore these glasses and you looked at Bill, you were looking at yourself?
Think about that.
Uncle Bill, my hero. He gave me my first bike ride. I know this is hard for you to see, but that's me in the basket of the bike at Moffett Field back in 1942.
Wow. Yeah, cool.
He gave me my first ski trips in the snow at Badger Pass on wooden skis without metal edges, and believe me, it's hard to get down the hill. And then we had to walk back up because there were no lifts at that time. On the water, on an aquaplane, old boards nailed together, being pulled by a car along an irrigation ditch. You really had to be careful not to fall. He gave me a chance to be a TV star on the Belfast Pop Club. I was there along with Ronnie, and we danced at the Pop Club. He gave our sons, Zeph and Carson, Zeph is here today, their first speedboat ride. And they got, of course, to drive the speedboat. He gave my mom, his sister, her one and only balloon ride. And he gave both of his sisters their only lighter ride. Then he gave them both the dream trip of a lifetime to Europe. Here they are being serenaded in a gondola in Venice. Have I said give enough? Uncle Bill was the most giving person I have ever known. My hero. He was the first person I knew who designed and built his own house. And when we built our first house, he was the only one of his generation, besides my mom and dad, who came out to help. Up on the roof, no less. Uncle Bill and I like to climb ladders, not always with the best results. When I was a hippie, with long hair and a beard, and my father wouldn't let me in the house, I would go and visit Uncle Bill. He always unconditionally accepted and appreciated me for who I was, and was always interested in what I was doing, especially if it was the tango. He supported and encouraged me and was always genuinely happy to see me. He was one of the few people who not only made me feel good, but made me feel good about myself. I have been extremely fortunate to have had Uncle Bill in my life for 75 years, and I will continue to take his spirit with me wherever I go. Thank you, Uncle Bill.
I just love hearing all the wonderful memories Uncle Bill created. He was for all of us here and many more. He was so wonderful in creating magic moments. And one of my favorite magic moments was whenever there was music and a birthday or an event, he would grab my hand and get me out on the dance floor and twirl me, and I was a princess, I was a queen, or he'd dip me, and he'd get a whole bunch of us going in a bunny hop or whatever he came up with. He created magical moments for all of us and shared unconditional love always. Thank you, Uncle Bill.
I'm eternally grateful for the morals he's instilled in me and what he's taught me as a man growing up. Ever since I was a little kid, my first memories of him were the house that he built, that Jim just referenced, and being there with the pool, the hot tub, the downstairs, the organ, the eclectic things that he owned, and just it was like walking through a museum. He had all the National Geographics and the raccoons on the deck. The view from Belvedere Island is something out of a dream. It really was. And for me, with my brothers and my sister, we couldn't ask for a better grandfather for what he represents to us. It's pure, it's true. You've heard all the great things about my grandfather. Imagine being his grandson. So, and I appreciate what he's done, so I pass that on to my son and my kids, and all the great people here saying great things about him really will make a lasting impression on them as well. As I got older, you know, he was stylish and classy and had a pizzazz, was a hip grandfather, always had a convertible. He's always traveling the world. We'd put pins on the map where he traveled to, and to me, he was the most interesting man in the world, right? He was that guy. So, hang on one second, I'm sorry, I don't have notes here. He always came to our he always acknowledged our birthdays. We get little cards in the mail that he handmade all the way up till when he was 99. The gifts that he gave us every Christmas and always made it a point to remember everybody's birthday and made everybody feel special. Recognized everyone. My wife Tracy would send her cards as well, and the girls, and everybody. He made sure that he knew that we were thinking about him. One of my most fond memories of my grandfather is when he took us to Great America and he rode on the Demon with us time and time again. How's this guy keep it up? I was like dizzy. And then the Willard's Wizard, I was for sure they named the ride after him and me. And so it was always fun to go to Great America. I told my friends that he named the Cow Palace, that he knew Howard Hughes, and he owned some root beer company. So to me, he was larger than life, even though some of that stuff might not be true. Made for a good story. So, you know, he was there, he and Posey were there at my wedding, and he was there every step of the way for everything I did. Visiting Posey and my grandfather, it was great for my kids to be able to meet with him, and I appreciated Posey allowing us to come spend some time with him, even though he wasn't feeling well. It was important for us to spend as much time as we could with him because we knew, you know, he had that life in him all the way up until the end. So it just seemed like he was always the same. I wanted to recognize also the people who couldn't be here today, my cousins, my aunts and uncles, the people who are not living as well. My mom, my grandmother Noreen, a lot of folks that my grandfather knew that would love to be here and recognize him as well. So I'm trying to represent them too. Truly means a lot to me that he was comfortable in his final days. And Posey, I wanted to thank you and your family for everything you did for my grandfather to make him comfortable and feel loved. And it really means a lot to me that, you know, when reach that golden age of 100, that he had love around him, and so thank you.
Thank you. I don't do a lot of public speaking, but I'm gonna do it. So, first of all, I miss my grandpa so much. He was my hero. I think he was everybody's hero in this room. I'm gonna back this away from you because I feel like it's in my face, but maybe that's supposed to be there. Anyway, he loved everybody so much. It was just, every single person that came into his life, he just loved and smiled for and adored and cared for, and he wanted everybody to feel like they were part of his love and his community. And I embraced that so much. Every time I saw him, he just had the biggest smile. All I wanted to do was just hug him and love him. And I think that, you know, he has touched everybody's life in here. And I don't know, to me, like, being his granddaughter is just the biggest honor I can ever imagine. He traveled, he loved, he danced, he loved every single person that was in his life. And I have that in me, and I'm so lucky to have that. Every time I would see him or come to him in the last 5 years, he always had this picture by his bed and holding it, and he'd always look at me and told me that he loved me and that he felt like he didn't do enough for me. And I just never understood that. I always looked at him and said, I don't know what you mean. Like, you've done everything for me. You've taught me how to, have a goal and to reach for it. And Posey too, she was always like, what are you doing? What are you gonna do with your life? And so that was a really big thing to me, is that every time I went there, I felt support, I felt love, I felt that they were there to encourage me, to teach me a story about what they had done and where they were going and how it worked out. And to me, I hold that inside of me so much. And like somebody else said in here, they said, it was Brett, I think it was Brett, like he said, all he's cared about is are you happy, and are you happy? I just want to make sure that you're happy, and I'm happy. I'm happy, Grandpa, and I miss him so much. But you know what? He was 99 on almost 100, and we all knew it was coming. And he, it's like I wanted him to outlive me. I don't know, is that weird? But I just wanted his influence around me at all times. And he's within me. I have his cheeks, I have his smile, I have his presence. I love people, I love talking to people, and I embrace everybody. And so I feel like I have a huge part of him in my life.
Travel genes.
I have his travel genes. I go traveling a lot, and I love it, and I will forever travel, forever. And
Got the travel.
It's awesome. And I kind of have his entrepreneur genes right now.
I'm Mark Anderson. Thank everybody for being here. It truly is a blessing that you're all in my grandfather's lives. You all meant something to him. And it's great to actually hear you guys talk and get to put some of the names with the faces and what I've been hearing about him this whole life. Posey, I want to thank you personally for just everything you did for him. You were an incredible wife and an incredible caretaker.
Tell them who you are. You are a champion coach.
I'm not going to use the microphone because I coach. All right, I don't have a microphone when I coach, so I'm going to talk out of I got a loud enough voice for everybody to hear me, I believe. Brett, I want to thank you too. Almost every time I went over to visit Grandpa, you were there. And I'm sure, and I wasn't there that much. but every time I went there, you were there. And it seemed like all the time I would go and you were helping him do something, picking something up. Louisa is in the back as well, one of his last caretakers in the back over there.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank her and recognize her. So I listened to all you guys' speeches. My brother Greg wrote some things as well. Everybody's kind of touched on what Greg was writing here as well about all that he did. We all know what he did and who he was. What he did for me is he taught me how to be happy, how to really enjoy and have a smile on my face as much as I could, because I was attracted to that from him. And there's some certain people in my life that I try to associate with that are happy people, and you always see it in their smile and their laughter. And Dad, you are a happy person, and deep down in life, and you are a person that somebody taught you how to be a father, and you've taught me how to be a father. And and you've done a great job of being happy and being a loving person. And I can't thank you enough for your relationship with your dad. And your example of what you did for your dad the whole way through is family. And so I thank you as well. I'm gonna wrap it up with this. I don't want to be long. I was debating telling this story, and I just made up my mind. Now I'm taking it, I'm gonna tell you because you'll never hear it from anybody else. Maybe a year ago. I'm saying the story to keep in mind that I have the youngest kid in the room besides Brett's kids, and they're not here right now. About a year ago, I went up to the door of the house, and the door was locked, and I think they were doing something wrong with the locks or something. And so I had to go around the deck and jump in through the back, and nobody heard me. I kind of came in unannounced. And Posey, I was kind of taking a nap, just wiped out. And then Dame Nat, she goes, "Your grandfather's back there, but warning, I think he's getting out of the shower." So I walk into his room, I'm like, "It's fine, it's not that I haven't seen, it's all good." I walk into his room, and he's coming out of the shower, and he's got his robe on, and his robe is open, and he's... I can see everything. And he looks up at me, he goes, "Hey, Mark! Hey, man, you're just in time for my blowjob." Carla comes out of the closet with the blow dryer and starts blow drying his junk. And I've seen it all. There you
go. But that's how my dad was. He would be so funny, and it's just all the time when he came over there, he made me laugh. Just looking out here reminds me of another story about my dad. We used to water ski right here, and I used to take off from the dock here, and my dad would take us around, and we'd circle right in front of Posey's house when I was a teenager, and we had so much fun in this area growing up as kids. And my dad just he was such a great, fun person to be with. I miss him. Okay, I wrote something for you. I won't be too long, but anyway, I just want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate my father's life. My dad was in Lakehurst, New Jersey when I was born in 1945, and that was, I was born 2 days before the bomb on Hiroshima was dropped. Wow. And then the war was over, and my dad was in the flying in blimps in New Jersey, and he said when he was in the military, people were different then. They saw you hitchhiking with a family, and the first car would pick you up. But then I came back to California, and he always wanted to live in Belvedere, so He went to the Belvedere Land Company, met Dave Allen. Dave, he wanted to find the cheapest house in Belvedere, which was $2,400 a lot. And he said, I don't really have a lot of money, but so Dave said, don't worry about it. How about $25 a month on a handshake? And that's what it was. He also wanted to buy or have a contractor build the house for him, and he found out that the contractor was going to charge $10,000. He said, I can do it for $5,000. So $5,000 worth of materials. He and his friend Jack Rance, his best buddy from childhood, built the house in Belvedere, and it's phenomenal. I think it's worth $4 million today.
Wow.
Then he went on in real estate. Oh, I remember also vacationing with my dad. He would take us to Yosemite every summer, and we'd watch the fire falls, and we'd camp out. We just had a great time growing up. Then he bought a ski boat, and we water ski. We'd go to Meeks Bay year after year, and we'd rent the same cabin right on the lake. We just had I had a great time growing up. In 1953, he built his first duplex in Tiburon. Had Ed Berger build it for him, and this builder was an incredible man. He also helped my dad out on loans on a handshake to get him started in real estate. His second building was 3 duplexes in Tiburon on Central West. He bought a book by William Nickerson called How I Turned $1,000 into $1 Million in Real Estate in My Spare Time. And that's what he went on to do, just that. He went on, he put together syndicates with his friends from Belvedere who were retiring. He earned them a lot of money. I'm sorry. He also came to all of my Little League games, all my swimming meets. While other kids' fathers weren't quite as attentive to their kids, he loved watching me and my sports. Mark's gonna help me. Come on up here, Mark. I get all choked up. I don't know why. I'm just an emotional person.
I'm gonna get some water.
Okay. Mark said, if you get all choked up, I'll help you. So, but he'll stand right by me. Just
go ahead.
It'll be good.
I'm great.
He also, when I was 12 years old or so, he decided that he wanted to help me and some of my good friends to start out in business. So he found this ad in Popular Mechanics, and it was an ad about selling light bulbs that were guaranteed to last forever. And he thought this is a great opportunity for kids to go door to door, to knock on the door and say, once you buy these light bulbs, you never have to buy light bulbs again, never. And it worked. I mean, the light bulbs are a little more expensive, but people were willing to buy them, and they're willing to listen to a kid just starting out in business. And lots of my friends earned money, and it was a great start for them. So he was really helped out. He also, in my 8th grade dances, he would come to our dances because he loved to chaperone. And he would get out there and make a big circle, and he'd get the kids out in the middle, and he'd clap, and he'd get out and bop. And there was one kid, Mac Dunwoody, that was the best bebopper you'd ever seen, and he just loved watching kids having fun. Okay, then in 1962, I was very involved with swimming, and my dad was the swim committee chairman at the Tiburon Peninsula Club. He formed the Marin Swim League, which is now in a very popular sport today. There are over 2,000 swimmers, I think, competing. My son Mark is the head coach of the Sleepy Hollow swim team, which is part of this whole thing. Mark, in the 20 more plus years that he's coached that team, has only lost 2 swimming meets and 300 wins. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. And your grandpa was proud of you. In 1964, we also went on the Lurline to Hawaii, and my dad and I competed in a competition for the best comedy kind of thing. Well, we dressed up. My dad had this idea. We dressed up and we took our shirts off. We painted eyes where our nipples were, and pasted a nose right here, and our lips, our belly buttons were lips. And then we took our sport coats and we wrapped our sport coats around our waist and put our necktie down here. And we put this big, huge hat above our head that was made out of cardboard. And we walked around the ship and played to the whisper music. We would come up to these old ladies in the ship and we'd go in and out with our belly buttons. And they just howled. Anyway, when we got to Hawaii, people stopped us in the street and said, "There are the whistlers." So, you know, and we had a ball doing that.
Oh my God.
Then in 1969, he semi-retired from advertising, and he just did his real estate investments. He bought a book, Frommer's book, How to Go to Europe on $5 a day, and he said, "I can do that on $4 a day." and you know, he was such a it was a challenge for him. It's not that he couldn't have afforded it. He just wanted to see if he could do it. And he'd find these little bed and breakfast places that were $1 a day, and the meals were $1. And you know, he did it on $4 a day just to see if he could do it. And then in the 70s and the 80s, he enjoyed his grandchildren. He took them to Great America every single year, and he loved to ride the roller coasters with them. And you know, he was a great grandpa. In 1980, my mom passed away of cancer, and then he married Posey, and they started his second chapter of his life. He loved music, and he loved traveling with Posey and their passion. You know, they loved their families. He truly enjoyed everything about his new life with Posey. They bought a fairy tale cottage in Carmel called the Fables, and their favorite spot was in Zihuatanejo in Mexico. Then after a while, Carmel was a little bit too far to travel, so they bought a Tuscan villa in Glen Ellen. And they both kept in shape by swimming laps. And my dad said, "I'm going to do this. 100 minus my age is how many laps I'm going to swim every day." So when he's 80, he swam 20 laps a day. When he was 90, it was 10 laps. I think he stopped swimming laps in his 90s, but he was in great shape for a man like that. It was just remarkable how physically in shape he was. In the 2010s, he spent a great deal of time keeping his mind busy and writing books of his experiences. All these books right here. There were, for future generations to enjoy. And then he handmade all his birthday cards to all the grandchildren, his children, and he had them all pre-dated and stamps on them, ready to go for their birthday, so they would receive them on time. We both enjoyed telling jokes with each other, and we were very competitive. He would call me up on the phone, and he'd start in on a joke without even saying, "Hi, Bill." He'd just start in on a joke. He'd get halfway through it, and I'd give him the punchline and slam the phone down. I gave him a birthday card one time that said, "Pick an age and stick with it." So he picked 18, and we both felt like we were 18 when we were together. So I have one more joke for you just before we leave. My dad would always tell this joke to everybody. I know it's a little off color, but it's what he said to even the nurses in the hospital and anybody that said this to him. But he would say, he said, "The receptionist at the sperm bank would always say, 'Thanks for coming.'" So that's what he was going to say to you.
while I was growing up. The first thing was about fun, and that it doesn't matter what age you are, you can always have fun. When they first got their house in Glen Helen, Bill wanted to make sure that his kids, his grandkids, whomever came there, would have something fun to do. So he went about putting a zip line in the trees. It was up on a hill and there were oak trees everywhere. And so he went about making a zip line for everybody. Put a ladder up one day, climbed up, was stringing the lines. Mom was in the house doing something. About an hour went by and she was like, where did he go? What is he doing? She walks outside and he has, as everybody has heard, falls off ladders. He fell off this ladder. He was about 20 feet up the tree, trying to hang the zip line. Fell off the ladder and he was kind of scooting up the hill on his butt, and Mom walked out. She said, what are you doing? He's all, I had to string the zip line for the kids. They're gonna be here any day. So he made sure there was fun for everybody and taught me that you never are too old to have a good time, whether it's traveling, hanging a zip line, or just laughing with your family and telling jokes. The second thing he taught me was how to save money. Super important thing that I learned from him. He told me a long time ago, he said, no matter if you make $20 or $200, put away 10% of your money and someday you'll have enough to do something you really want to do or something that you, somewhere you really want to go. And I still do that to this day. I put away a little bit of whatever I make, and that's how I'm able to do some of the things I get to enjoy doing. Traveling is one of the things I love, and every time I go somewhere, I want it to be somewhere he's been, or if he hasn't been, which is nowhere, because he's been everywhere. How they said, you know, they put pins in the map. His map was covered with pins, and I used to look at that and just be in awe of all of the places he went and all the wonderful memories he made and people's lives he touched. And the final thing that I learned from him was that you don't need $1 million or a ring or a bunch of money to do something beautiful for somebody to give them a gift. Every year for my mom's birthday and their anniversary, you've heard of his homemade cards. He would make a beautiful handmade sign and put it in their bathroom, so when she woke up in the morning, it would say how grateful he was to have her in his life, how much he loved her, or how joyous he was that this was their anniversary one more time and he got to spend one more year with her, and glad he had her in his life one more year. I only hope that we can all experience that kind of love, and I hope you all will remember him with the deepest affection in your hearts. Thank you.
Ed was Bill's best friend all their lives, and thanks to Bill and Posey, they got my parents out of the house and saw some wonderful travel and brought us, our family, and our children with them. We had 8 wonderful trips to Mexico. We all shared together, and if it wasn't for Bill's adventurousness, it would have never happened. And I was reading one of the books just the other day, and I have to ask Bill as well, because I just still can't believe it, that Bill and your friend with the Jeep and the 16-foot whaler drove down to the Baja and sailed 500 miles in a 16-foot outboard motor down to Laredo, which has got to be the most adventurous thing I can even imagine. And he kept saying in his books about the angels on his shoulder, and that and other trips like the Thunderbird down to the Whaling Bay, just amazing trips that we all wish we could do. And I know you just, those are things you really treasure. We thank you all. Thank you.
Well, I love Bill Posey also. He was such a good man. Everything that everybody has said about him is true, and then some. He was just full of joy, happiness, love, and laughter and life, and it's true. He made you feel like you were the only person in the room. He listened to everything you said. He made you feel so special. And if you ever spent Christmas with them at their house, you certainly heard, you know, his big joke that he liked to read right before Christmas dinner, which I'm not going to get into, but I will say this. I'm from southern Mississippi, and so I spent a lot of time in New Orleans and whatever. I was raised in the 50s and the 60s, and so in the 70s, I was out of college, and I was working down in New Orleans at a big engineering firm. I studied architecture and engineering, but that's a past life. But someone comes up to me and starts reading me this on the first day of Christmas, my true love sent to me, okay? And it ends up being this unbelievably X-rated 12 Days of Christmas. And so I'm sitting at the table with the Anderson family and the boys. One Christmas, probably 5 or 6 years ago, and all of a sudden, Bill pulls out this piece of paper and he starts reading this joke on the first day of Christmas, and I nearly died laughing. But anyway, Mark, I wish I had been there when he said you just weren't here in time for my blow job, because that is Bill Anderson to a T. God bless you, Bill. We love you.
Michael Scott Anderson. And Grandpa was definitely my favorite. And my first memory was with Posey taking piano lessons with everybody else. I kind of sucked. And Greg was pretty good. Carrie was good. I didn't listen at all. And Grandpa would take us to the McDonald's over here.
Nice.
We'd get chicken nuggets after piano lesson. And then we would go to Great America all the time. It was so cool. And then, I had Grandpa hired me. You remember that? For a summer or two, he would pay me better than my dad did. So I was more than willing to work for him. He gave me a raise, which made me feel good. And built fences and worked with Glen Ellen. And we came down here and swim after work. And he'd feed me ice cream. And his favorite was cookies and cream, right? Oh, yeah. That was the best. So, anyway, shouts out to my grandpa. He was the best. Everybody knows that. I know it. So, I also remember one time thinking, I wish he would just live longer. I smoke cigarettes, so I'll give him my extra 8 years of life. You can have it, because I want you to live longer, Grandpa. I need you around. So I'm glad he lived longer than any human possible, but that's the guy he was. He was the best. He taught me how to build things and get a better job. Yeah. All right.
Became very close to them, closer even when one night Bill called. He said, "Will you have that darn dog stop barking?" that was an encounter, and of course we did. Another thing that I remember about Bill, he was so much fun. And we went to the mountains with him at Christmas time to spend some time skiing and so forth. And at that time, it was the same dog that did the barking, Otto. And Bill would say every time, "Come on, Otto, let's go out and make yellow snow." His humor again. But one thing in particular, because he liked parties, just as Posey did. But one night we were there, and probably were there too long and too late. And he said, sort of, this is time to close up, and nobody seemed to move to go home. Next thing we know, here's Bill in his pajamas, and he said, "I'm going to bed. I don't know what you're going to do." But Bill was just a wonderful guy, as everyone else has said. He made you feel special. That smile of his and his sparkling eyes, it just is remarkable to see that energy and that love that goes on and on. And he would say right today, I think that love still is going on. And the love between Posey and Bill was miraculous, wonderful. Anyway, I'm glad Bill was in my life.